All Knicked Up family, all Knicked Up family. What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? Gonna try to jam out a little bit. It's one of my tracks I made up many moons ago. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. I got the approval from Big Cuff right here. We're both riding co-pilot tonight. Eric's in Germany, driving around in Porsches, living a fancy life. I mean, if we could only have it as good as that dude has it, man, right now. Wow. Riding around with Bumblebee from Transformers. I mean, what better world can you think of than a guy just, jet sets across the world and gets in a Porsche? And I'm just figuring Lamborghini pictures are next. What do you think there, Joe?
I think he's probably about 4 beers deep right now in a plate of Wiener Schnitzel.
Sal Broughton is on, all that stuff.
Gonna drive on the Autobahn later in that Porsche.
Man, if we could only be as lucky as that guy, man. Let me tell you one thing.
International man of mystery, Eric Holzman.
Just waiting for him to come out, with the cloak, He stole some documents we don't know nothing about yet. You never know with this dude. You never know. I'm telling you, he's out there. But, needless to say, hello, all Knicked Up family. We are, as I just said at the bottom, we're back. We're back in business. We're in the preseason mode for the New York Knicks 24-25 season. I think we're all a little bit ecstatic. Obviously, a lot of big news happened, as we know. As Knicks fans, the whole basketball world knows, I should say. Unfortunately, Joe wasn't here when we sprung the last time, little surprise show. That was basically discussing the Karl Anthony Towns trade for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. As we know, that was the big to-do in the NBA. But the Knicks have had a very busy offseason, as we've known. A lot of changes have come around. It seems like every time you look around, Leon Rose and company, pulls another rabbit out the hat, and you just get kind of sideswiped, not knowing what was going on. So, I call this one, you got to discuss it. The cataclysm is official. That's what we're dealing with. We officially have Karl Anthony Towns in a New York Knicks uniform. We know these things have been discussed for a long period of time. Speculation over the years. This was Leon Rose's, big to get. He always wanted Cap, from what we understand. We know this CAA connections and all the et ceteras that go along with that. But, I wanted to give Joe an opportunity, because he wasn't on the last show, to discuss Karl Anthony Towns, the big cat. He has a couple of different new names. Actually, let me get into the new name. We might as well just put it up there as the Big Bodega. Josh Hart calls him. The Big Bodega is officially open. Dominicans stand up. You got one of your own actually in the city, thriving. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Joe? I mean, you had a time to marinate it. We know just the little parameters. Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle went to Mini. Obviously, the big cat came to New York. Some ancillary pieces went to the Hornets. Picks, sign and trade players, et cetera, were involved.
Someone actually wanted that Detroit pick.
Yeah, somebody actually wanted it, and if they, we'll probably want it too, because they probably will play good enough that it should be ours.
That's the way that works.
Yeah, but I want to give you your time to talk about this. I know you were a fan of Randall's.
Yeah.
We all mutually were fans of Dante DiVincenzo, obviously, how he showed up in the playoffs, big-time player. What is your thoughts? Let's let us know.
I was telling you before the show started, I was kind of maybe a better thing that I had a little time to sit and marinate about it. I got in my feelings, I think, about the whole trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as Knicks fans, we have preferences. I think all of us wanted to see a championship team that we drafted and watch them grow up.
Yeah.
So, I know that Eric was a little kind of in his feelings when the OG trade went through, just a little bit. But I was the same way with this trade, because I look at it this way. One of the things James Dolan has said that I agree 100% with was at the news conference, when they signed Amari Stoudemire, and he said it takes guts to come and play where the lights shine brightest.
Yes.
And I've always admired the fact that Randle came here, to New York on a bad team, and, stuck with it and built something and brought respect back. I wanted to see us win with Randle. I really did.
Gotcha.
So again, kind of in my feelings about that a little bit. Seeing Dante go out the door was really hard. That was like swallowing like a sock covered in sand. So
Yeah.
it was hard, but sitting and thinking about it, it makes sense. First of all, anybody that was surprised that they traded for Karl Anthony Towns hasn't been paying attention. It's one of the worst kept secrets I'm talking like 2 years
Yes.
that he was the target.
Yeah. Yep.
He was the
Absolutely.
target that they wanted. And also the kind of murmurings around the league that eventually Minnesota's going to want out of that contract,
Hmm. Hmm.
that this wasn't going to be something that was going to work for them. And now I do see it in a different light. I see the grand orchestration of it all. I see what role he plays in the offense and
Hmm.
what this team looks like now. And I have to give a lot of credit to Leon Rose because he took a team that had a lot of talented pieces and a lot of young pieces, but it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Having three ball dominant lefties, and there was the team didn't make sense. And what he has put together over time is a team that makes a hell of a lot of sense. The pieces fit very
Hmm.
well. My hope is that they just don't sit him out on the perimeter the way that Carlisle did with Porzingis in Dallas.
Yeah.
And actually, they'll feed him sometimes in the high post and use him on the block and things like that because he is not just a three-point shooter. The three-point shooting's nice, especially out of someone out of that position. And yes, 5 out, I understand all of that stuff. However, you're dealing with somebody that can hit on 3 different levels. He's a rare and perhaps unique offensive prospect.
Absolutely.
And it goes back to something that we have now that you've talked about time and time again, and it's that black hole offensively at the center position where we are playing 4 against 5 with people, and we become very predictable and everything like that.
Hmm.
So we are going to lose some of the offensive rebounding. We're going to lose some of the shot blocking, but what we are getting is far more valuable in the deal. You could find rebounding, you can find shot blocking. I mean, you can find those things, but someone with his skill set is rare. And another thing that I really like about this trade and everything that Leon Rose has done, and I don't want to go too deep off this topic, although it's like calling me,
Go on.
the fact that everybody signed.
Yeah.
And what that eliminates is guys on their contract year going off a script because they have a contract year coming up. This is the perfect storm of people that can buy into a system and play within a role because they got paid, they have their money,
Hmm.
no distractions and everything. I really think what they put together was a work of art. So again, I wish Julius Randle all the best. I appreciate him like a great deal in what he did for this franchise. And Dante it was a pleasure watching him last
Absolutely.
year. I mean, dude grew and just performed and was just everything you wanted in a Knick. But I'm
Hmm.
looking at this team right now and going, we're better. We're
We
a
are.
better team. So
We are.
that's
No, it's very funny. Everybody who ever listened to me knows I'm not the biggest Karl Anthony Towns fan. I'm just not. I've just never been a huge fan of his. Dating back before this podcast came around and people got a chance to see our faces that are made for radio, we were talking in those threads about, you know, KP versus Karl Anthony Towns.
yeah.
Shout out to Eric, shout out to Craig. They were big, supporters. They loved Karl Anthony Towns. I was one who liked Porzingis. I said, well, I like KP. I said, there's something about playing in, obviously, we know the heaviest jersey in all of sports is the Knicks uniform. We know this now.
Absolutely.
Not everybody can come here and stomach, the expectations, the fervor from the fans, the viciousness from the fans sometimes, the expectations, even though when they're outlandish, we know that that's what's going on in New York. It's not just basketball, it's everything off the court as well. And the thing I questioned the most about Karl Anthony Towns was exactly that. What's going to happen when the pressure cook happens? What's going to happen when the fans turn on you? They don't like you, or you've had several bad games. What is your resolve when doing that? And before, when he first came into the league, these are things I questioned about him. Porzingis, I kind of like, because I know once he was drafted, the first thing he told New Yorkers, "I'm not soft," and I'm like, "Well, damn."
Yeah.
When I heard that, I'm like, he's not soft, because this is the last place you make that kind of proclamation and come out and play a soft game. So he was putting the Knicks fans on notice that no, I can play here, and that's what I loved hearing about him. Cat, on the other hand, I always thought he was a little too much finesse. That was the biggest thing with me. I like my big guys down the paint. Causing damage in the paint, playing a rough neck game, and that's what Julius did play. So you do have a great appreciation for what he brought to the table, because it was a lot of physicality when he played, typical what New Yorkers want out of their athletes, just the grinded out players, the tough players, look like you give a damn players. That's really what it comes down to. But in saying all that, when hearing about this trade, I'm not the biggest Julius fan, but I'm a big Julius fan in the sense of he's a dog.
Yeah.
I use that word all the time about New York players, especially Knicks players. You need that kind of animal in that uniform. Although he can sometimes get a little mindless, we know that, but you never question whether or not he was, one, trying to win, and if he was tough. Those are two things you never question about Julius. Those same things I can't never always say about Cat. I have to be convinced again that he is capable of being those things that made Julius fit in New York. And, I still got a couple question marks. I do.
Does he have to be that person, though?
Well, this is now that's a great question, because my biggest thing is that he's not the star here. Let's go into this. Jalen Brunson is the star in New York. He's the star on the Knicks. Right now, albeit I know Karl Anthony Towns is touted with his talent. He's known to be a star in some people's eyes. I don't want to say superstar. I hate throwing around that word, because I don't think a lot of them exist. But he is the main guy. If you were to ask anyone, oh, you're getting Karl Anthony Towns, he's the star going to the Knicks. Well, the Knicks already had a light bulb on. We already had a star in the Madison Square Garden who's proven time and time again to be the type of athlete that we want in a Knicks uniform. So he brought all the toughness, the brawn, and the guts and the grittiness and the clutchness. And he's the reason why we are where we are. Now you're asking Karl Anthony Towns to come in and just be a playoff consistent player that we never got a chance to see Julius do. That's the only thing I want from Karl Anthony Towns. Can you go out and match your season numbers in the playoffs? If he does that, this is beyond one of the greatest pickups that you can get at this current time for the Knicks, because the thing that we were always not – I don't want to question Julius as much as it's just some guys are not built for certain moments. And I think he had some failures early on, never got a chance to redeem himself because of the injury. So we never got a chance to see him resurrect, his resume as far as saying, nope, that was a fluke during the bubble.
I think that would have happened.
What's that?
I think that would have happened.
I think so too. I think the style of ball we saw him playing towards, last year, last season before the injury, he was like, this is the dude we've been wanting. If you play like this, we're going to be a hard out on any team that decides that, that we face in the playoffs. But part of the issue was, once again, he had the worst bad luck at the wrong time. Hence why he's probably traded now. It was a bad break, literally, that fall, from Hawkins, walling him over in the shoulder injury is probably why he's out of New York. Because other than that, there's two things that happened in New York that moved to where we are with Karl Anthony Towns, and that was not being able to sign iHeart and Julius getting injured. Those two things changed the direction of the Knicks. So, too bad that Julius didn't, get his opportunity to – I think New York Knicks fans still respect him. There's some that don't like him. It's just what it is. But I think overall we know who started who was the first guy to come here and sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
Decided that he wanted to be in New York and take on the pressure of being a main player here. And he did well. He had his little hiccups, I think.
But the inarguable fact is he played a large part in bringing respect back to the jersey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm one of those people who wanted him. When that trade happened, when he got signed out, that's like, he can play. It wasn't like he can't play. It's just I didn't know if he was going to be a star. But he's shown everything that he needs to show in New York. He's been great. He's been fantastic.
You know something that I was just thinking about? I'm going to go into some astronomy analogies right here. So we're going to go
Right.
out in space for the team before, when we were talking about all those parts that didn't quite fit, was kind of like a meteorite field. Just things going in their own directions, occasionally collided. Sometimes good things happen, sometimes bad things happen.
Yeah, very good.
Karl Anthony Towns is not a star. He's a planet. And so is Mikhail Bridges. And
Nice.
so is OG Anunoby. And
Mhm.
so is all of these other pieces that they're putting in. And they are not meant to be stars. They are to revolve gravitationally around the star, which is Brunson. They are people to service his game, to pick and roll with him,
Mhm.
to provide outside shooting, to give him space to cook in the paint
Mhm.
and everything like that. And that is a well thought out plan. This team is a solar system right now.
That's a
You
very good.
have your star and you have really highly functioning planets revolving around him,
Mhm.
waiting to serve their purpose. But in this model, you only need one star. You don't need that old adage, we need 2 stars, we need 3 stars. This is going to work as long as everybody stays healthy.
Yeah,
This is going to work, I think.
I agree with you. I don't see. This is the first one of the first years that, as a Knicks fan in a very very long time, that I was just had the utmost confidence that we can win a title. I know we've talked about it over the last couple of seasons where we had the Miami loss, and we're like, well, I thought that was like our one great opportunity
Yeah.
we can cash in on. And you were the person who was very confident. You came back the next season and says, I think we can replicate that. I think we can go and
But
do even
that
better.
was getting to the conference finals. I
Yeah,
think the confidence now is we can actually win.
we can win. We can win. We can win. We've gone through the stages, and I think this is the first time I've actually seen a Nick team where I'm looking at them like, well, we know what the weakness is because it's unproven as far as us not having a backup five. That's really what the question mark is now. Do we have someone who's going to be serviceable and show up and be able to lend in helping this team win? That's really what it comes down to. Jericho Sims, we'll get a little bit into his numbers, and it's his preseason game, but it's whether or not you have the help to back up someone like a Towns. We know Mitch Robinson, we hope is coming back sooner than later. If he comes back and he's somewhat healthy, then the question marks are not about the Knicks don't really have a question mark other than
No, we don't.
as far as I'm concerned, because if he is the backup, which I've always felt he was a backup, I never thought he should be a starter. If he is the backup to Karl Anthony Towns, given what I looked at during the preseason game, with the kind of help that the Knicks got coming off the bench, if he's your backup and he's part of that bench is going to beat a lot of teams. A
Yeah.
lot of teams, like just the depth alone would be absolutely absurd.
And the players that you have playing power forward right now rotate up to small forward, and the small forwards rotate up to off guard into
Yep,
point guard, and then all of a sudden you have guard depth and wing depth.
yep. This team is loaded. This team
Yeah.
is for Knick fans of all the years of suffering, and God knows. I was talking. Actually, it's so funny. I was in the store earlier, and obviously, where the Nick had, and someone came up to me and he's like, "Well, what do you think? We're going to do it this year?" He's like, "I said, well, I always give people the Brunson symbol when I see the Nick fans. I'm like, if you don't know this, then don't talk to me about the Knicks." So I go like this. He would be laughing. So we're just chirping it up, and he was like, "Well, what do you think? You think we can win?" And I said, "Well, look, I'm the curse because I was born in '73. We haven't won since I was born. So imagine me walking around with this kind of feeling on my chest about the Knicks." And I said, "Well," he says, "Well, the last one, he's old enough to remember the '73 team." And I'm like, I said, Knick fans need to take stock because this is about the closest you're going to ever get to knowing a title in your lifetime. If you've lived and we're in our 50s and people in their 40s, maybe some people even in their 20s, you might as well just get a ticket for this ride because this is the closest that the New York Knicks have ever been this competent and this talented at the same time. Where they have a star and they do have, like you said, they have those planets surrounding the star. And literally, what we're seeing now is they have the biggest and best opportunity to win an NBA title. I don't think I've ever said that. the
Yeah.
whole time I've ever been a Knicks fan and believed it. You hoped it, you wished it, but I believe now the Knicks are a title contender. And I don't even think it's like
It's not just for this season too. They got these guys locked up for 4 seasons. You know,
yeah,
again, this is the most excited I've probably been about from basketball, and I can't even tell you when.
hmm
Sat through so many bad seasons. I mean, I've been talking with you and Eric since like 2009, 2010, almost 15 years. And we sat through a lot of bad teams. And you look at this team and you're just like, just stay healthy, man.
that's all.
Just stay healthy,
Mhm.
ride it out, get all the bumps out early in the season, get used to each other, figure out how you're functioning, hit a rhythm, and then just go in
Wow.
the playoffs and smack people around. Because, I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about Philly, but I think at full force, I think we're much better than Philly.
We
I
are.
do not think Philly is that team that we have to worry about, personally. I think we could beat Philly. At full force, them, us, I don't care what shape Joel Embiid is in, I think we're the better team. Boston is really where the measuring stick is, but we're
That's it.
really designed to play Boston. Wouldn't you say that?
I think for me, I mean, I look at the Knicks as being the Knicks were built to beat any team. And that's the way I look at the Knicks nowadays. I know a lot of people said that they geared up to play to dethrone Boston. But when I look at the Knicks, I'm like, well, they can dethrone anyone. I don't look at a team with any kind of intimidation. I know Boston had their great season. They hit fire. I mean, this might have been an anomaly season. Maybe you don't see this kind of season ever again from them. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they're champions now; they can build off, and they're expecting a dynasty." But that's not something I ever saw in them. I always believe that Tatum, as well as Brown, have a tendency at some point to disappear in games. Now, when they've not had the pressure to do it with Indiana when they played them. Indiana didn't have their star, and he's been a little inconsistent. They had never been there. Maybe they were in a little shock factor. Maybe Carlisle actually got a little bit outcoached at some points in that series because there's certain ways he might have had 2 times where he could have won the game, and they didn't. So that could be a different series if you take that first one in Boston. I don't have this great fear of Boston, especially now KP's out. He's always going to be injured. He's never going to be a consistent player.
It's true.
So when you look at what do we have on the New York Knicks, we have the best 2 wing defenders, and it's not even close. They're the best 2 in the business. You have Mikal Bridges and you have OG Anunoby. I like our chances of putting anyone on, either one of those guys on Brown and forcing him to use his left hand. Because that is the question mark. Can he ever go left? Can he dribble past 2 dribbles without turning the ball over? Now you got guys who can pressure the rock a lot more. And then you can throw in some of those little small dudes that are unexpected, like someone like Deuce McBride, where you can bring him in now and he can be a help defender. Josh Hart can be a help defender. When these guys try to get into the lane, now you're getting stripped a little bit more. And Tom Thibodeau, we can talk about his shortcomings, but defense is never one of them.
No, but you got to look at the other side of the coin too here, in that our best player is being guarded by maybe the best defensive guard in the entire league.
That's true. That's true. And that's the thing I was going to bring up when you do look on the flip side. To me, the most important 2 players on Boston are White and Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that you have to outdo and get your points manufactured. Because I think the Knicks got guys that can neutralize the big weapons in Boston, or at least hold them to a respectful number. Now you got to say, does Boston have an answer that they can stick on Karl Anthony Towns? That's really
not if Porzingis is out.
This dude becomes what we talked about earlier. With the big bodega, the store would be open, and they're selling all kinds of chips and sodas, whatever you want. Because let me tell you, the level of how he plays, and if people watch him, I know don't listen to the rumors of what you think he's like. Don't listen to the rumors of what Jimmy Butler said and all these other guys talked about. His softness. He's a mature man now. He's been through a lot of adversity in his life.
He really has.
Yeah, he's been through some stuff. And then when you look at his style of play as of last year, in a couple of years, when he's aggressive, and I think it was Pat Beverly came out and said that Karl Anthony Towns may drift when he plays the 4, but when he plays the 5, he's the most engaged player on the planet. You're now telling this dude, Embiid can't stop you. KP can't stop you. They can stop you. I mean, these are the warnings. They're going to believe that these guys are going to be your greatest adversity. That dude hits every shot from everywhere. So now you neutralize, maybe say Drew Holiday does get the best of Brunson, or he slows him down. Who's going to slow down Cat?
And if he puts the ball on the deck, which he does well, neither of those two centers have the lateral quickness to stay with him.
Nope. And he can go nuclear. I mean, I watched that one game.
That's really the guy that you would have to really kind of feature in that series.
I think so. I think he is. I think Brunson can be neutralized to a degree because of his height. Height always is going to be an issue. I don't want to be Becky Hammond talking about height. I'm just saying that you tend to. That's the one thing that if you put enough length, not that he can't get 25, but Boston does, much like you just repeated. They have the best on-ball defender probably in the game in Drew Holiday. He's a nightmare for every guard in the league, including Jalen Brunson. So you're going to say, well, maybe that might be a wash. Maybe he might be restricted. But when you look at Karl Anthony Towns, when he is on his game, when he's playing as a two-way player at a high level, there's not a guy in the league stopping him. It's just not happening.
No, and that's throwing Al Horford at him.
Yeah. I just look at Tom Thibodeau. If he can get, and which he seems to do, and we don't give Tom doesn't get enough credit. I had to think about that the other day when I look at the fact that guys got paid on his watch.
Yeah.
Guys got some contracts playing for Tom Thibodeau. We look at iHeart, he's got his bag. Dante DiVincenzo is believed to be one of the best players in the league. Before coming here, because I was a Dante fan, Dante was not getting this kind of fanfare. He was not believed to be this kind of player. In fact, the question marks was, what, can he finish at the rim? That was a big question mark. He was terrible at the rim. You know, he's
still not great.
He's still not great. But look, he is now thought to be the center. I mean, I don't believe he's the centerpiece of the trade. Let's keep that a buck. But when you talk about Dante DiVincenzo, that's who's mentioned the most in the trade. Like,
he'll be on that team 3 years from now.
What's that?
Probably. He'll be on that team 3 years from now. Randall possibly will not.
Yeah, I think Randall's got. I think he's in a 2-year window. I think he has a player option, and then which I think he'll opt in because either that he's going to Brooklyn. They're the only ones going to offer money for him. Then you move on to after that. You need to keep him because they're Nas Reed. That's the dude that they all love seemingly. So.
I kept saying this about Randall, and everybody was afraid of his price tag, that he was not going to get anywhere near what he thought he was going to get, and he may possibly opt in. The market is not what it was before. The rules don't apply anymore. Yeah,
because the minute you saw a guy like Brandon Ingram, who was thought to be like this budding young star,
skills,
him have a seat. Have a seat. You're not getting what you think you're going to get. What you're going to get is you're going to take these now laters and these Snicker bars.
You might take that, kid.
you might get a grape soda out of this, Brandon Ingram, but you're not getting the check. You're not getting the bag. You might get a little grocery bag, but you're not getting the bag. You know, this is just what it is. We're in a whole different economic scale when it comes to the NBA. So, we're not, don't fool yourself into thinking that you're one of those players. And, you got to shout out to Brunson because that discount is why we have what we have, because more than likely, everybody wants to get their bag, and they don't care about the franchise whether or not they're restricted afterwards. They're going to demand what they want. Him taking less clearly opened up this opportunity. It would open an opportunity either for Randall to get re-signed or open up an opportunity, which we saw with Karl Anthony Towns landing here. But when thinking about it, I would say I think he had somebody had somewhere in the know that they weren't going to sign Julius and that they were going to have to want to call Anthony Towns. I can't see why else would Brunson take that kind of discount. I'm not trying to go conspiracy theory, but that is his godfather and holding down the court in Madison Square Garden right now. So we'll see. But let's move on. We're going to talk about a couple other people because like to call them the trench mob. I don't want to go bench mob anymore. Let's talk about the trench mob. What we saw, obviously, the Knicks played the Charlotte Hornets
They did.
to a nail biter. Oh my! Imagine that.
I thought that was going to overtime.
That was precious, precious. Literally, fouling the 3-point shooter.
Yep.
But you know what? You can tell that dude's cheeks was tight as hell. He was never going to make out. he was definitely having a buns of steel moment there at that line because I know damn well he was not trying to make. He knew he wasn't going to make any of those free throws. We were just waiting around for the ending because we knew that was pretty much over. That was a lot of pressure on that kid, unfortunately. But shout out to him. But a couple of things. Preseason is always weird, but I'm one of those people I do buy into patterns. I buy into what I see people do in their practice habits. Just generally, it gives an idea about where you're headed as a player. Granted, I don't expect Brunson to go out and drop 40 in a game, in a preseason game, nor Karl Anthony Towns. We saw them kind of trying to figure out things. So, they're going to say, okay, you like the ball here. You saw Brunson give a little handoff. Cat launches, a 50-foot 3-point shot and nail it. I know they're just figuring out the ins and outs. I was a little bit concerned with Josh Hart, just because of how he plays. I don't know if he's a guy you start and give a role to.
John's been talking about that a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just me. That's the one thing that if I had to question very, very early on, and it's only because we've all watched Hart play, clearly. It's not like he's new here. We know what kind of game and what he brings to the table, which is awesome. I just don't like it when he's been giving a role. I don't think he has a role. I think he's just a player that goes out there and makes things happen, and he makes winning plays. That's just what I believe he is. To say, you're starting 2-guard, now your responsibility is to knock down shots. I don't think I want him doing that, but that's just me. Maybe Tim knows better than me. I'm going to defer, but I don't know. That's just my thought on that.
Let me ask you a controversial question.
Mm-hmm.
Dante or Hart would have worked financially in that deal. Hart would have worked better in that deal, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have had to give away some of those draft picks. Mm-hmm. If you had your choice of who to include in that trade, Hart, so I know who I would keep and why. Who would you keep?
I'm such a big Dante fan. I am a huge, like I said, I've followed him out of college, watched him win the NCAA tournament, watching college ball a lot more.
It's not an easy decision.
It's not, because the guy I'm probably going to side with is probably the guy I normally would not side with. I know that sounds weird because I'm about fundamentals. I'm about a lot of knowing what you get out of a player. Can you do this? Can you do that? What is your counter? And this guy has not one damn counter in his whole damn bag. But I've just watched enough in those moments. I've always been a moment person. I don't care how skilled you are in the NBA. You can be one of the greatest players in the world. We saw Karl Malone, what? He goes into Chicago, has a chance to advance the game. The all-time leading scorer at the time. Yeah, was he all-time? Yeah, second to Kareem. Put up all those damn numbers, and what Pippen told him. The mailman doesn't run on Sunday. And you can make the shot.
Mm-hmm.
I look at a guy like Josh Hart, and I go, I don't know what the hell he does. I have no clue. I have no idea what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But it wins. And we've won since he's been here. And I look at Dante, and I'm like, you're a sniper.
He's the only true 2-guard on the roster. He was the only true 2-guard on the roster.
He is. And let me tell you, when they got Mikal Bridges and they're talking about off-season things, no matter what it was, I mean, we didn't know about Mikal, but I was like, Dante's a dog. He's a starter in this league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even Brunson's backcourt, there's not a question whether you need to improve it. It is improved enough. They can get the job done. Then I look at a guy like Josh Hart. He's an anomaly because I've never seen a guy, definitely in a Knicks uniform, who probably has one of the most underwhelming offensive games overall because he's such a utility guy. Basically, he's a Swiss Army knife. But man, he came up in the playoffs and got those damn double doubles and then hit big shots. I'm like, damn, do you not want him on your team? It's such a hard thing because what I've done is with Landry Shamet, and we'll bring up some of the bench people, but I looked at Landry Shamet and I told John this, and he was like, I was like, oh no, I don't, you know how he is. John's John. He was like, oh no, not Ty.
Your answer is
what's
you're
that?
waffling. You're
I'm
waffling.
keeping Josh Hart. I'm keeping Josh Hart.
I would keep Dante.
No, it's. I don't think there's a wrong.
No, it's one of those questions like
there's no wrong answer either way
for
because
me, it's a better roster fit, and you never get rid of shooting. But again, you realize you're losing the X factor out of that equation, which is so important to the team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking Hart because it's just in this market. Before Dante got here, Hart was doing this, and he was. I don't even know. I always tell Eric that when he first came in, you know, he was doing the whole thing, and I said light skin energy. Shout out to my black people, but he had a lot of light skin energy, and I'm like, you got to prove that. I don't want to hear all that. You know, you doing what you're going to bring to New York. Prove it, because everybody comes in with that, and then I'm like, well, he shut me the hell up because he proved it. We went on a massive run when he came here. I had no idea what the hell he was even doing out on the floor. I just know they were always big plays. Then you get Dante coming in here. I mean, you got to figure this. The Nova thing was so wonderful. I mean, these guys really love playing together. They brought such a different element to the team. Each guy brought something different that was conducive to winning. But we go back to what I was telling John. John was like, oh, you know, Dante, who the hell is Shamet? You know, he's going all there. He's like, oh, I don't do Shamet or whatever. And I said, Shamet's pretty good. I said, people need to really think about along these lines about what Shamet does offer. He's been a very tough player in this league. He can ball. It's not like, and he's more versatile to me than Dante. So now I was like, oh, no, you were right. And I was like, I don't want to be right. It's just more so you got to watch his game because it's so easy to dismiss it because you're going, oh, look what Dante did. I don't think we can get someone else in here like that. And I'm like, no, you can get someone in here to do what he does. It's just not a lot of guys out there can shoot the rock that good. However, Shamet's numbers are better from three.
But it's hard to find somebody that can shoot the rock like that and play defense.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. You need to come up with that. That's true.
Yeah.
For
those of you who we've mentioned John a couple of times, for those of you who don't know who John is, he's one of the godfathers of the show. He's one of the original OGs.
Yes, sir. Scissor hands. There we go. What's up, scissor hands? Wish you was on, brother. I always like John. If you know John is the objective one, he's always going to give you his opinion, which I always love about him. He's always going to give you his opinion. He's not worried about whether you think it's good or not. He's going to tell you. But my mimic of him was the fact that he too agreed at the point. He says, no, Shamet is a little bit better. But let's talk a little bit about, because we know that the game is going to start pretty soon.
What did you think about the bench in the first preseason game?
That's what I'm going to get into. Why I call them the trench mob. I actually, when I first saw this, because we've been talking about the shortness of the bench and the depth, and the big question mark was whether or not we have enough. Then this team rolled out, and then the starter side, obviously, and then we saw a campaign come in. We saw, Shamet come in, my man, Sham God too, as I call Sham God Light. Sham came in, Sham Light came in, and then Deuce came in. Deuce was wow. I mean, the dude just was like, well, look, I'm shooting every damn thing, and you can't do nothing about it. Came locked in. Jericho Sims gave great minutes. I mean, what did he have? I was going to tell that he had Sims had in 21 minutes 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 points. I don't care about the points, but I think amidst that it was 5 offensive rebounds, which was what we were talking about. That's what Sims brought. I mean, imagine Sims brought that to the table, and I just felt like our depth wasn't a question mark as much as I think it will be in people's mind when initially this happened. We're like, well, we're losing Dante. Well, that's really what you lost. You lost Dante. Right. Mitch is injured, so you can't count that as a loss. That's just a recovery. The Knicks now have some pretty stellar guards. Because if Deuce McBride is on his trajectory, he's a candidate for Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah.
So when you have a Sixth Man of the Year, which the Knicks seem to produce the most of them, when you go back in history, we had Starks, we had J.R. Smith, we have Manuel Quickley was almost Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah.
The Knicks do produce Sixth Man of the Year kind of talent. Anthony Mason, rest in peace to him, Sixth Man of the Year. This is the Knicks thing to have a Sixth Man of the Year candidate on their squad. Deuce McBride, if he's the Sixth Man of the Year and your backup now is he's playing along with Shamet and Campaign and probably in the future Mitchell Robinson, where's the weakness on the Knicks bench? I was struggling to find it.
Oh, and you start to bring in Kolek.
And that dude.
He's a guy, dude. He's a guy. I mean, I have to tell you, I really missed on McBride. I did not see this coming. I think a lot of people didn't see it coming. The shooting is just incredible at this point. I saw something that he won some kids college tuition at West Virginia off a jump shot recently.
Yeah. Oh,
he's just locked in.
You see the video? It's ridiculous. We're going. I'm sorry.
And then, Shamet really, I mean, I've noticed him over the years and seen him in box scores, and the kid can stroke it. He definitely can.
Yeah.
And Kolek, I just really liked what I saw from him. And I think that working with Brunson and seeing Brunson work and what he puts into it is going to be the best thing for this young man, and also potentially give him avenues to also mimic other areas of Brunson's game and to add to his own. I think it's going to be a great relationship, I think, between the two of them. And again, I'm a big proponent, honestly, that we should probably slide Achua into the power forward, start him there, and move Josh Hart to the bench. I think that having that kind of dynamic player that does all the things that you talk about is only going to help the second unit. And he's going to be out there when the game's closed, and that's all that really matters to him.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's the Charlotte Hornets, but also there were some things. The starters I really didn't get much out of, but there were a lot of things from the bench that I liked.
Oh, yeah. I thought that they looked like they've been playing together for a long time. The continuity was pretty graceful. That Kolek's in the lane to Precious I was like, wow, is this a video game happening here? Because the pass was pinpoint, and then it looks like a real point when he did. Precious just went to the rim, and I'm like, whoa.
There's a real point guard on the floor. We haven't seen a real point guard in a real long time. We're not talking Alfred Payton here. We're talking a real point guard.
We're talking Mark Jackson. That's probably the last point guard the Knicks had in a very long time where he was a setup guy. The thing that I liked about Kolek was his confidence. I mean, those shots, his first move was a shot, and it went the hell in. It wasn't like I was like, you're a rook coming in with this kind of confidence.
It was afraid.
And everything is flowing. I mean, he did say, I think it was a quote from the paraphrase, that he said he's going to follow whatever Brunson asked him to do. They've been working out at Chris Brinkley, so we know during the summer they've shared time together on the court. And and he actually said, when a lot of people said about TJ McCollum,
that was a lazy kind of comparison, that he felt he was more like Brunson.
Yep, he thinks that he's more. And when I watched him, it's so funny. I said he reminds me of Brunson more than, but he's a better passer. He's the better passer of the two. You can get that kind of toughness. He's clearly a tough kid. He got that block down the lane. He's built for New York, man.
The only thing I don't like about him is he's got that Bond villain haircut. Seriously.
He does. He looks like a complete villain.
He's got the Mads Mikkelsen, like the Hannibal haircut.
There you go. That's a very good example. Yeah, he's got that whole villain thing working. And you know what? He probably wants to be the villain. Those kind of guys that are unassuming, probably because of their hue and their slowness and thinking that they won't. And those are the guys that snipe you. We know
Library seem like a step on the neck type. Like don't be fooled by the JQ looks. He'll step on your neck kind of players. At least we hope we're getting that.
I think so. I think you see a lot of the big. Well, I think the helpful thing is that you have guys that played in the Big East, so they're a little familiar with Madison Square Garden and the New York crowd. that does help. I always say blood in the ground. It's very important to understand the lay of the land in New York and how the fan base works. You know, if you play some of your collegiate games there, and obviously if you're from the area, you know, that's the same thing with Karl Anthony Towns. I was telling people, I said, when you listen to, he has an interview with Shannon Sharp. This was prior to him getting traded. He was just talking about Minnesota, but his attention to what the Knicks do and what they're about. I think he has a great understanding. You know, rest in peace to his mom. His mom, huge Knicks fan. Father
Huge.
tried out for the Knicks at some point. That's a little bit of the brief history about him. But you also hear him talk about the Knicks players. He talks about Willis Reed. He talks about Walt Frazier. He talks about Ewing. You know, Dave DeBusschere was somebody he brought up. I'm like, he was too young to know about Dave DeBusschere because I know I'm too young to even know about Dave DeBusschere. However, he had a great reference and understanding about New York Knicks basketball. I think he's going to be fine because I think he did grow up in Jersey. He knows that you don't come here and you can't come here like that. You're going to get ran out of town. I don't think he wants to get ran out of town. And I think people probably need to acknowledge that he's probably playing a little bit covered, you know, with the passion for his mom, and that was a favorite team. So,
Do you know something though? Also, some nights he could be a C. Sometimes it's going to be Mikal Bridges.
yeah,
Like I see him walking into a very good situation for coming into New York.
big time, big time.
With the talent that's on this team right now, what's expected of him? Like, remember RJ's initial press conference?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Some jackhole turned around in the media, turned around and asked him if he was ready to take the franchise on his back and lead it to the promised land. And he was like, I haven't even played a game yet. And this is really like the expectations that are thrown on players in New York. But he's walking in with a bona fide star and a great supporting cast, expected to do very specific things. This is about the best version of Cat coming to New York that I can imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I agree 100% because when you look at the lay of the land, like I said, he's not the star. The pressure's off.
No.
The pressure is off because it's all on Jalen Brunson, and he seemingly has some superpowers about New York because he's like he learns though he. I think the best thing he probably ever did for himself was admit when he sucked.
Yeah,
he's like, I just got to do. I was terrible, and you can't. It's like a Jedi mind trick in a lot of ways because if you tell New York fans that you suck, it's not that they can come back and say, well,
you suck.
Yeah, you did. And you want pizza? Because what else can you say? There's a difference when the arrogance is that, oh, I'm great and I didn't do nothing wrong. Don't question my skill level. He's like, no. Yeah, I was terrible. But we've seen him come back the next game and not repeat that. Like, okay, let me bring my best game the next game when the bad game has happened or, not so spectacular game. He's gotten that. Cat just has to walk in the door and do what that dude does. And this is an easy template for New York. And much like you're saying, walking into a situation playing in New York, Brunson's already taken all the pressure.
Yeah.
Now he's elevated the team to a point where there's expectations, but it's also the expectations with the fan base behind it. They're not saying, oh, you got here and you lost the finals. They're like, no, if we get to the finals, now you're reaching a godlike status in New York. And God knows if you win it, you know where that's going to go. But he's come in and he's laid the foundation that Cat is coming in average points. That's what you got to do.
And again, there is the whole Mikal Bridges thing, who he was miscast in Brooklyn as an A. He's not an A. I think that having him move into a situation similar to Phoenix, where he was a B, we are going to see more Phoenix Bridges, who may wind up being our B player.
I think so. I think it's possible. Because
what I mean? So that's a great environment for Towns to come in. I don't know. I'm just excited, man. I know we all are, but I'm just really pumped to see this thing develop and see where it goes.
Yeah, because I look at it now. I think that we are in a great position. This team, like you said, have three bona fide guys that are capable of taking over a game, or being the center of an offense. And when you got those kind of things, it makes everybody's life a lot easier, and especially when you like each other and you're willing to share the ball and commit to defense.
And there's no agendas because everybody got paid.
Everybody got their money. So who's sticking out like a sore thumb? And you got guys that generally seem like they like each other.
Yeah.
And they don't mind being a holio to each other, but it's like brotherhood. It's like when you can talk to your brother or your sibling or your family member in a certain way that you're like, I'm not going to offend you, but I'm going to be very honest and upfront with you, and you kind of just take it as constructive criticism as opposed to criticism altogether. They seem like they generally will hold each other accountable when it comes to being on the court. At least we've seen with Jalen and Josh often the biggest digs and the funniest parts of them talking crap about what how each other suck at doing something. So they have no problem being public about what they're terrible at and letting that other person know about it. But I love that dynamic. It's a very open thing where you're getting the full dialogue and conversation about, yeah, we need to be better. So Cat's fine. Cat's going to be fine. I don't think people need to worry about Karl Anthony Towns.
So there for a little bit. All right, did they hear he is
Still there? Did you freeze up, Joe? Did we lose Joe? We might have lost the big cuff a little bit.
So I'm very excited to see.
Oh, there we go. We got a little buffering. I guess we're buffering a little bit. But yeah, no, you're right, brother. It's going to be a great thing to see. That's for sure. Well, I just want to throw this up for a little bit before we get wrap this up because everybody got to get to the pre-season. Well, we're going to talk about one of our greats, Patrick Ewing. We learned recently that the New York Knicks organization has decided to bring back the captain, the big fella, whatever you want to call him. Well, the captain was Willis Reed, so this is the big fella, my bad. The big fella, Patrick Ewing, back into a capacity of having a role with the Knicks, something that I believe for a long time was well-deserved and well-earned. It just never seemed to happen. But lo and behold, what we are seeing now is that this franchise front office kind of gets it. They get the fact that we are a team that, a team that needs a lot of better window dressing. I think we might have lost Joe. It's okay. If you can get back in, brother, that's fine. If not, we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon anyway. But just wanted to conclude that Patrick Ewing, for one thing, is we know one of the greatest Knicks ever. Some believe the greatest Knick ever. Well-deserved honor to be part of the New York Knicks franchise as an ambassador. You know, he is literally going to be the face of New York Knicks basketball, which is something that I think a lot of the old heads will definitely greatly appreciate, that we are bringing guys back in the fold for once. You know, we have celebrity row of players, former Knicks players. We've seen Stephon Marbury come back. Obviously, we've seen Latrell Sprewell. Larry Johnson, we know, has always been around. Melo's been back in the Garden. We're starting to get it as a franchise and show our history to the world as far as, you know, guys that have paved the way prior to when it was terrible. This has been terrible for a lot of damn years. Let's keep it a buck. But now we got guys that are coming back, and we're starting to see that we look like a normal franchise. One ran with a lot of history involved in it. The Knicks are a very important franchise to the NBA. You know, we've just been irrelevant due to the wrong reasons. Well, we've been irrelevant in basketball, but relevant for the wrong reasons in the media. And now that reverse has happened. So we're now seeing it come full circle. Somebody like Ewing coming in, maybe he can actually help out some of the bigs in his time off. I think Mitchell Robinson could benefit from him. A guy like Jericho Sims could benefit from him also. Just to kind of pick his brain and figure out some nuances, because he was a very talented player on both ends of the court. So shout out to Patrick Ewing, the big fella. Welcome back home. We definitely love that. And, well, we're just going to conclude it. You know, next week, hopefully we'll get back. The guy, the man of mystery of the world, should be back in the loop next week. Hopefully so. But needless to say, you're going to see us in some sort of capacity. And, hey, what is it? Go Knicks. Any final words, Joe, if you're still available, that you want to say?
Nope, just let's go.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like that. Well, you know, you can reach Joe upstate. Joe, tell me where you can reach you, whatever. Where are you at, brother? He's somewhere. Don't worry. His name is at the bottom. We'll go by that. You know, you can reach me at All Nicked Up, obviously on our fan page, Gene Scribble on Twitter. Get at your boy. We'll be back next Wednesday to chop it up once again. Let's go Knicks. Hopefully we get this W tonight. I want to win everything. I don't care if it is preseason. Let's get it. For Ty and for Joe, All Linked Up Podcast, much love to the fan base. We'll see you soon.